So I want to talk a little bit about how dangerous rattlesnakes can be when you're in remote areas and you're backpacking, especially if you're going to start fishing and you're going off trail or you're going cross country. You always got to remember where you are. Never put your hands somewhere without looking first. Never step without looking first. People who hunt and fish and go off trail and go through brush are people that commonly get bit by rattlesnakes because you can't always see everything where you're going when you're breaking through brush. So this generally is the kind of thing you want to look out for. If you're going, say you're climbing over a log like this, you walk up, don't just walk up and put your hand on the log. Don't climb up on the log and just jump over the log. There could be a rattlesnake sitting under this log. You jump over this log and it's gonna bite you 100%. So you really just got to make sure you're always looking where you're going. You're always looking where you put your hands. I mean, don't do it while you're eating, but go online and look at rattlesnake bites and you'll see. Rattlesnake venom isn't like your typical neurotoxin, as far as I understand it, where some snakes that have a neurotoxin in their venom, it'll stop your nervous system and, it'll cut your diaphragm and eventually you can't breathe and all that stuff. With a rattlesnake, it destroys tissue. So basically what the venom's doing is it tries to digest the prey a little bit before it swallows it. I guess it's enzymes or something like that. I don't know. So it's important that you realize that if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you get bit by a rattlesnake, say you get bit in your arm, you're probably going to lose a lot of the flesh on your arm by the time you get help, if you don't lose your whole arm. And that's if you even survive. Because if you're miles away from getting any help, I mean, there's a good chance if you're alone, you're not even going to be able to hike out of there. So you just got to really, really be careful. I mean, I go up canyons by myself where if I get bit by a rattlesnake, man, when I climb into these canyons to fish these rivers, they're just going to find my skeleton. There's just going to be raccoons dancing on it because there's no way I'm going to be able to get out of there. So I make damn well sure I look at everywhere I'm going. I never put my hands on anything without seeing it, and I never step over logs. I never sit. You don't want to get bit in the ass. I mean, if you sit on a rock and there's a baby rattlesnake, it's going to bite you. And I don't know what that's like, but you're not going to be sitting down. I mean, you might lose one of your cheeks because by the time you get help, it's an ugly situation. I've read accounts of rattlesnake bites where it's described as after a certain amount of time, the arm's all swollen, and when they get to the hospital, they'll touch the flesh, and it's like a rotten peach because it's already just the venom's done so much work and destroyed so much tissue, and there's no coming back from that. I mean, they're gonna have to cut that away, if not cut your whole arm off. So you really want to be careful. And when you're in the backcountry and you get off trail, you're gonna be walking through tight brush. You're going to be walking through areas where there's rocks at face level. So say you're going through here, and you go to lean up against this rock right here, and there's a snake right there, and you don't see it, and then you're sitting there, and then you just put your foot there, and bam, you get nailed. So you really want to make sure that you just always look before you sit down, before you do anything. You want to get a good view of everything that's around where you're going to be, because you don't want to stumble into it. I mean, if you get a situation, and you always want to know what you're going to do. If you get a situation where you hear the rattlesnake rattling, that's ideal, because everybody's on the same page. The snake doesn't want you, you don't want the snake. So the best thing to do is know how you're gonna respond to that in advance. Don't freak out because you might step on the snake. If you hear it rattle and you just start making rash decisions, panic will kill you every time in the wilderness. So you want to make sure that when you hear the snake rattling, you stop, you locate where that rattling's coming from, and you back away slowly. This is no time to poke the snake. This is no time to try to agitate or move the snake. You just want to get away. Don't take out a flute and try to charm the snake. Get away from the snake. The communication's been done. He's saying, get away from me. Another thing I like to do, especially when I'm fishing, if you start fishing alpine lakes and you start fishing streams, you're gonna be climbing over driftwood. You're gonna be climbing over some really scary looking terrain. And what I like to do, which I don't have this ready right now, of course, but if you can find a long stick, what I like to do is if I'm going through something and I'm having trouble seeing what it is, where I'm going, I like to give it a good thump. You know, if you can take a stick and you're walking over a lot of driftwood and you bang it on the ground, it'll send vibrations through the wood, and if a snake is in there, it'll hear you coming and it'll get away, or it'll start rattling so you know it's there. You don't want to just trailblaze right through. You want to keep your eyes moving. The things in the wilderness that can seriously injure you, possibly even kill you, are those rare occurrence things where it's very rare that you're going to encounter these things. It could be very rare that you get bit by a snake, but if you get bit by a snake, by a rattlesnake, and you're in a remote area, the consequences are going to be grave. And depending where you are, like some of the places east of Fresno where I fish, there's just I don't know if I would be able to get myself out of those canyons. So my advice to you is, if you do start fishing or you are new to backpacking, always watch for rattlesnakes. Always watch where you're putting your hands. Always watch where you're putting your feet. Always look around the area where you're going to kick back. If you see a rock or you see a log, look on the other side of the log, look on that side of the log, look on top of the log. Just make sure it's clear, because a small baby rattler, they don't rattle. The rattles aren't developed yet. They just have like a little nub there. So that thing's going to bite you and it's going to unload all of its venom, and it's going to be invisible. A tiny snake sitting there, if you're not paying attention, if you're talking and you just, you've been hiking and you're tired, so you're just going to plop down on that log, you're going to get bit, and it's going to be ugly, and you're going to need a helicopter probably. And if you're lucky, you'll make it to the doctors alive. So my advice to you, if you're watching this, if you're breaking through brush, get something to lead the way with. Get something to lead the way with. If you're going through areas, if there's high grass and there's logs under it, take this thing and bang it through. Have your fishing pole in your other hand, break through the brush, stop, listen, make sure there's no rattlesnakes. I encounter rattlesnakes. I've encountered rattlesnakes up to 7,000 feet. In the mountains. They're less likely the higher you go, because it gets cold at night. When you get above 10,000 feet, it gets in the 20s in the fall, so I don't know. But I'm always on high alert, because who knows? If I see lizards, there can be snakes. So that's my rule. If I see lizards, there could be a rattlesnake. It might be a rare rattlesnake, but a rare rattlesnake will kill you just as much as a common rattlesnake in an area that's only 2,000 feet. So, it doesn't matter if it's rare. All it matters is that you got bit. So, you're not going to have anti-venom. A lot of times you're going to be in a situation where it's going to take you an hour to hike back to your car. or 2 hours, and if you get back to your car, then you're gonna have to drive another hour before your phone works, or you're gonna find somebody that can help you. So it's one of those things. It's like bears, but it's worse than bears in my opinion. Rattlesnakes are something that they're landmines, and you got to watch out. And when you're going through tight brush and you're going through high, shoulder high, chest high rocks, you just really want to make sure. Just remember, never when you're in the wilderness, put your hands somewhere when you're not looking. Never go down and start picking up wood if you're gathering firewood. If you got a wood pile at home, wherever you are, that's like one of the places people get bit. You know, it doesn't happen a lot, but it's a place of reoccurring bites is the wood pile, because people reach for the wood pile. So if you have a wood pile at home, keep your eyes out for that too, you know, when you're reaching for that log to throw in your stove. But if you are gathering firewood, you know, and you're camping, keep your eyes out. Even if you're in a campground or something, keep your eyes out, because if you're reaching for wood and you don't see a rattlesnake and it doesn't have time to respond, it doesn't have time to start rattling, it's going to bite you. Your arm is going to swell up the size of your thigh, and then the clock's going to be ticking, and I would be surprised if you still have an arm by the time you get to the hospital, if you're even alive. So don't mess around with it. Always be on high alert. Always be cautious. Go into the woods with caution in all situations, and know how you're going to respond. If you do hear the rattle, it's a freaky, creepy sound, but you got to fight the creepy sound, and you just got to remain calm. Never panic. No matter what the situation is when you're in the woods, you never want to panic, because it's never going to help you. You know, you want to be as methodical and thoughtful as possible if you're in a situation that's life-threatening. So when you hear that snake rattle, just freeze. Everybody freeze. Figure out exactly where it is, and then you have several options of other directions to go in. Make sure he doesn't have like a sister snake right over there that's going to get you on the backside, you know, and just make sure. And it's one of those things where it's like bears. If you never encounter it for years, you're not going to be that cautious. But if you run into a snake, you're going to be on red alert, high alert all the time. You know, I hear a rattle, anything, you know, I'm like a prairie dog at the end of the colony that hears something strange, and I'm just, you know, I'm immediately looking for danger. So just be careful, be cautious. Don't get bit by a rattlesnake. You know, if you're climbing up rocks and you really can't see what's up there, try to have a stick or something so you can bang it up there and hear if there's anything. If you're climbing up something and you can't see what's up there, throw some stones in your pocket. Throw those up on the ledge before you go and stick your arm up there. Because if you throw the rocks up there, it's going to alert a snake and get it to run for cover. It's going to make it rattle, so you know it's up there and you're not just climbing. Just don't start climbing. If you can't see where you're putting your hand, you need to be really careful, and you need to proceed slowly. So I hope this helps not keep you from getting bit from a snake, and just be very careful at all times you're in the woods. You got to be on high alert, and you got to understand you are in the wilderness, and the wilderness can be a dangerous place, and it doesn't matter. You don't need to be in the backcountry. You could just be in the foothills fishing. You could be anywhere. You know, the rules for rattlesnakes apply all the way down to your local hiking trail. So I hope this keeps you from getting bit. And I hope you take this advice, because this is, of all the advice I give you, rattlesnake caution is something that you want to start looking at from minute number 1. So thanks for tuning in to Wilderness with Amani, and I hope you have some safe adventures in the wilderness, and you never ever have a bad experience with a rattlesnake. Thank you very much.